15.3 billion New Zealand dollars went out as milk payments. And then the co-op still voted to sell the brands everyone recognises. That's not a branding story. That's a business model admitting a limit. Fonterra sits in a rare position in food. It's huge. It's industrial. It's a national utility disguised as a company. And for a long time, more looked like the advantage. More milk, more processing, more export power. But dairy has a trap that only shows up when you're big enough to feel it. Because Fonterra isn't built like a conventional packaged food business that tries to defend a margin and keep it. It's a farmer-owned cooperative. Its first job isn't to maximise brand margin. It's to maximise a sustainable milk payout, then earn on top of that. When dairy prices rise, the payout rises with them. When prices fall, the payout falls with them. Either way, the largest river of value is designed to flow through the co-op and back to farmers. So scale behaves differently. In a brand-led company, volume is leverage. In a co-op, volume can become obligation. More milk means more cash moving through the system, more fixed asset load, more working capital pressure, without guaranteeing a proportionally larger layer of earnings the co-op can retain. And dairy doesn't give you flexibility for free. This is stainless steel and steam, dryers that hum for hours, evaporators, cold storage, ports, shipping schedules that don't care about your quarterly narrative. You can't pause that machine the way you pause marketing. So when capital gets tighter or volatility gets sharper, the question shifts from how big are you to something more uncomfortable. How efficiently can you convert the same milk into higher return outcomes? That question is where consumer brands started to look like friction. Consumer businesses can be valuable, but they can also be slower to reprice and expensive to defend. Packaging costs spike. Promotions compress margins. Retail negotiations punish volatility. And in a co-op, the biggest cost line, the milk payout, moves with the market. So the consumer lane can end up feeling like the wrong kind of scale. Not because it's small, because it's slow. Fonterra agreed to sell its global consumer and associated businesses, Mainland Group, to Lactalis for 4.22 billion New Zealand dollars, subject to approvals. And in late October 2025, farmer shareholders approved the sale with 88.47% support. Fonterra also signalled a targeted capital return, $2 New Zealand dollars per share, roughly 3.2 billion New Zealand dollars, after completion, expected in the first half of 2026. If you want to understand what happened here, don't treat this as a sale. Treat it as a portfolio correction. The co-op was buying back something more valuable than brands. Optionality. So what replaced scale? Precision scale. Not more milk, better placement of milk. Fonterra's economics make that clear. Ingredients dominate the volume base, about 85% of milk solids sold. And the business has framed ingredients as a double-digit return engine across recent years. Foodservice is smaller in volume, but it punches above its weight in earnings. Same input, different profit physics. Ingredients is not one product. It's a ladder. At the bottom, you're selling commodity tonnage. At the top, you're selling performance. Proteins are where dairy stops behaving like a commodity and starts behaving like a specification. Solubility that doesn't fail. Heat stability that holds. Texture that stays consistent when a customer scales. When your ingredient becomes part of someone else's process reliability, you stop competing like a commodity supplier. You become infrastructure, and that is where scale quietly moves from factories and volume into contract design. This is also where volatility changes character. In the old story, volatility is the enemy. A swing, you survive. In the precision scale story, volatility is managed. Fonterra has tied ingredients performance to tools like index-based pricing and margin hedging, because if you can price and hedge with discipline, a swing becomes a spread you can plan around. Not a miracle, a structure. Foodservice adds the human layer that most financial narratives miss. This isn't shelf persuasion, it's kitchen reliability. Fonterra supplies chefs, bakers, and operators in more than 50 countries, and it operates application centres, especially in Asia, where teams work with customers to make dairy behave the right way inside local menus. In Greater China, it has pointed to demand for products like UHT cream, butter, and mozzarella when describing food service momentum. In a chain kitchen scaling across cities, inconsistency isn't a taste issue. It's waste. It's rework. It's margin loss at the worst possible time, when the line is moving and the pressure is high. So brand power becomes something different. Not what shoppers see, what operators trust. A farmer's year is decided by weather, debt, and payout stability, whether the milk price range holds, and whether the co-op stays strong enough to keep investing. A chef's night is decided by whether the cream whips the same way under heat and speed, when the kitchen is loud and the margins are thin. Precision scale is Fonterra's attempt to serve both realities at once, to keep the payout engine stable, while making the earnings engine investable. And it's not pretending the transition is free. For FY26, Fonterra guided to lower earnings from continuing operations, roughly half to two-thirds of $1 per share, explicitly reflecting the impact of the divestment. It also stated it wants to rebuild earnings toward current levels within about 3 years, using investment, execution, and higher value capacity coming online through 2026. Smaller on paper, sharper in returns. Step back, and this story isn't only about dairy. It's about what happens when a dominant model hits a structural ceiling, where more volume increases complexity faster than it increases retained earnings. At that point, strategy becomes conversion, converting commodity inputs into functional performance, converting volatility into a priced spread, converting scale from more into allocation and contract power. If the highest return advantage increasingly lives in proteins, pricing structures, and food service reliability, what happens to the consumer brand era that taught dairy how to look powerful? Because the next source of leverage won't always sit on the front label. Sometimes it sits in the terms no shopper ever sees.